the top stories, Prime Minister Harris announced no new taxes for upcoming financial year. 39 church members in Jamaica fined over $1 million, and new details emerge on the abandoned children case in Houston. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, October 29th, 2021. I'm your presenter, Shanique Harvey. Nationally, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, has said that his government has no intention of introducing any new taxes when it presents its 2022 budget later this year, notwithstanding the economic fallout the COVID-19 pandemic has had on St. Kitts and Nevis. He was responding to a question posed during his monthly press conference on Thursday at the NEMA conference room.
We are not contemplating new taxes. We would want to have more efficient collection of existing taxes. And we will strive going forward to have higher compliance by all in paying their taxes on time.
The Prime Minister stated that once persons and entities settle their respective payments, then the government would be in a much better fiscal position. The Federal Cabinet recently wrapped up the 2022 Budget Estimates Committee meetings with the relevant line ministries as part of the process to finalize the budget for the upcoming financial year. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, the government has diversified the domestic economy, a critical component of its development strategy. The Prime Minister announced on Thursday during his monthly press conference that the Federal Cabinet is proceeding with the development of a local medicinal cannabis industry.
Our future growth will also be positively impacted by a successful build-out of our medicinal cannabis industry. Cabinet this week agreed to solidify our efforts at building out this industry. These efforts will be pursued by the Cannabis Authority, which will have a core team of committed professionals and a consultant to implement government's plan in this area so that the stronger, safer future is delivered as promised.
Previously, Prime Minister Harris stated that the Medicinal Cannabis Authority will provide for lawful access to medicinal cannabis as an alternative treatment for persons who are suffering from a qualifying medical condition, and to provide for a comprehensive licensing scheme to regulate the cultivation, supply, possession, production, and use of medicinal cannabis. The Medicinal Cannabis Authority will consist of representatives from various government ministries as well as members of civil society. The Medicinal Cannabis Authority will submit recommendations to the Cabinet in relation to the issuing of licenses and other authorizations, and advise the Minister on matters of general policy relating to the management and development of an efficient and regulated medicinal cannabis industry. The bubble experience at Port Zante will continue for the time being as the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Tourism, and the National COVID-19 Task Force work to mitigate any spread of COVID-19. On days when cruise ships are docked at the main cruise port, persons who are unvaccinated against COVID-19 are not allowed into the bubble. A temporary barrier is erected around Port Zante to prevent anyone from going in or out of the bubble. The bubble allows for the fully vaccinated cruise passengers to patronize the stores and restaurants, thereby generating economic activity for the business. The bubble protocol at Port Zante was instituted on September 14th, 2021, when the celebrity equinox marked a return to the main cruise port since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The guests are also able to proceed on bubble tours, interacting with fully vaccinated tour guides and staff at approved sites and activities. Regionally, in Jamaica, the 39 church members of the Pathway International Kingdom Restoration Ministries, who were last week charged under the Disaster Risk Management Act, were fined a total of 1.2 million Jamaican dollars when they appeared in the St. James Parish Court on Wednesday. More in the CBM Live news report.
On Wednesday, 39 members of the Pathways International Kingdom Restoration Ministries all pleaded guilty to charges under the Disaster Risk Management Act, DRMA, and were each fined $30,000 or 20 days in prison. This comes a little over a week after 2 members died, allegedly, as a result of a cult-like ritual. CVM Live spoke with 2 of the 39 congregants who are still in disbelief over allegations against their now deceased leader, Dr. Kevin O. Smith. One expressing how lucky she is having escaped death on October 17.
It just can't add up. The maths is not adding up because this Kevin that I know is not the Kevin that I see playing out now. So it just can't add up. So it just leads me not to trust anyone. I trusted that man so much and didn't know he was capable of doing what is playing out in front of our eyes now. Because even up to the point, didn't even see it, just what I'm reading and just what I'm hearing. We get to understand that there was 144 of us to be sacrificed. So it is like shocking. Still wondering if that's the Kevin that we know.
The other congregant tells CVM Live she has now put the bizarre incident behind her and intends to worship with her family.
My family comprised of 5. That's a whole church by itself.
So you mean you'll be keeping church at home with your family now?
Yes. If we now go work on those days that we would normally worship, whether it be Saturday or Sunday, we do church every yard.
Both women assert that they have now lost faith in all religious leaders.
We just no pastor, no priest, no evangelist, nobody no more. I would not even go to a church and take communion and feel empire, sorry.
Aladdin Love for CVM Live.
And finally, in regional news, in St. Lucia, the southern fishing community of VA Fort continues to hope for the return of 2 of their colleagues, following their failure to return from a trip to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. More in this HTS News report.
On Thursday, 21st October, 2 fairly experienced VA Fort fishermen set out on what is a routine trip to Beckway in neighboring St. Vincent and the Grenadines and back. The pair's expected time of return was late afternoon that very Thursday. The scheduled time of arrival came and went, but there was no sighting of the men. Concerned by their fellow fishermen on dry land, gradually turned to fear. Vieux-Fort fisherman Andre Miller said the 2 men had gone to purchase equipment and supplies.
We got news that they left Beckway at around 1 in the afternoon. And up to now we haven't seen them, but we don't know what went wrong. If it's the engine trouble, if it's too much weight the boat had, we don't know. But we're still keeping our hopes that they may be drifting and something will find them. We're asking for that. That's our praise.
Miller said that the boat which the men used for the trip was equipped with the latest communication capability, but there was no word of distress from the men on board the missing boat.
The boat is well equipped. The boat have GPS, safety equipment. They're supposed to have a satellite phone on board. They're well equipped, so we just don't know what's really going on.
What could have gone so terribly wrong is weighing heavily on the minds of the southern fishing community. The latest incident is beyond the ordinary mishap at sea.
There have been certain incidents, but not incidents of loss. Machine breakdown, you might come in the next day, following day, one day out and thing because of the machine breaking down, but it's not really anything like what's going on there now. When you have a fisherman missing for over 72 hours, that's concern. They left on Thursday last week.
The Vieux-Fort fishermen are holding on to fast-fading hope that the men will be found at sea, but the failure of the 2 fishermen to communicate with their colleagues on land is distressing. Are the 2 fishermen and close friends drifting at sea, or have they experienced something a lot more sinister? Stanley Lucian for the HTS News Force.
Internationally, police near Houston said a boy was beaten to death by his mother's boyfriend, and his 3 brothers were forced to live with his decaying remains for a year. More in this report.
This morning, a gruesome discovery. Gloria Williams and her boyfriend, Brian Coulter, are facing several criminal charges after the body of her 8-year-old son was found in an abandoned apartment.
In my long time of working homicides, this one's up there. You know, this one affected us.
Sunday afternoon, a 15-year-old boy belonging to Williams called police for help, saying his brother has been dead for a year. 31-year-old Coulter is charged with first-degree murder, and 35-year-old Williams is accused of tampering with evidence and injury to a child by omission. Authorities say the 8-year-old Kendrick Lee died of multiple blunt force injuries, and his decomposing body was found in plain view.
We saw soiled carpet, no furniture at all. No bedding, no blankets, nothing that we could see.
3 of Williams' other children, ages 7, 9, and 15, were allegedly left alone for months with their dead brother. They were found malnourished and showed signs of physical abuse. Overnight, Melody Robinson spoke to our affiliate KTRK.
For you as a mother to watch somebody do that to your child, that's not a mother. A mother doesn't do that.
A neighbor says several residents complained about the odor and other issues in apartment 531.
I understand the management company called your apartment. And what did they ask you?
Yeah, they called me and they want to know, have you seen those guys? Your next door neighbor. I said, no. I said, can you go and knock on that door? I did, but nobody answered. So that's happened a few times.
Really hard to wrap your head around this story, George. As the authorities have mentioned when they showed up, no blankets, no furniture, no electricity. It's been really interesting to spend some time there with the neighbors as they begin to talk to each other and kind of piece together some of the activity that was happening around that apartment. I'm told that a former teacher showed up just a couple days ago, completely heartbroken by the news.
France has seized one British trawler for operating in its territorial waters without a license and fined another as a bitter dispute with the United Kingdom over post-Brexit access to fishing grounds escalated. Al Jazeera's Andrew Simmons reports.
A British trawler seized by French maritime police who say the crew was fishing for scallops without a permit. That's denied by its owners. It may sound like a small incident, but it's symptomatic of something much bigger. A potential escalation in a post-Brexit fishing rights dispute that's causing much more than a ripple in UK-French relations. It cites, for example, Jersey, the British Crown dependency, only accepting a third of the fishing permit applications from France.
It's time that we are respected. It's totally insufficient and totally unacceptable. So now we must talk the language of force, and unfortunately, I fear that is the only thing this British government understands.
The threats go beyond banning British trawlers from offloading their catches at French ports, because this only amounts to a small proportion of exports. Without a settlement of the dispute before next Tuesday, there'll be rigorous French customs checks on incoming cargo, and they won't be restricted to seafood. But Britain isn't offering any concessions.
The measures being threatened do not appear to be compatible with the Trade and Cooperation Agreement or wider international law, and if carried through, will be met with an appropriate and calibrated response.
This isn't the first time the fishing rights issue has flared up. In May, French trawlers blockaded the main port in Jersey. The British and French deployed a naval presence during the protests. This time, France seems unwilling to back down on demands.
Ce n'est pas la guerre, c'est un combat.
It is not war, it's a fight. The French fishermen have some rights. An agreement has been signed. We must have this agreement implemented. We have fishing rights. We must defend them, and we will defend them.
France is also working on a second round of sanctions if they're needed, and that could mean a reduction of electricity supplies to the UK. Jersey is 95% dependent on French power. Andrew Simmons, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Present weather is fair skies with dust haze and volcanic gas. Winds are a light air of 2 miles per hour. Seas are 0.6 to 1.2 meters or 2 to 4 feet. Weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis today will be mostly sunny and slightly hazy with a 20% or slight chance of showers. Tonight will be mostly fair with a 20% or slight chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 5:41 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow at 6:08 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your presenter, Shanique Harvey.